Hello everyone and welcome to this session about DEX dashboards. My name is Nestor Falcon and I'm a Customer Success Architect at Broadcom. And today I will show you the value offered by DEX dashboards in our AIOps solution. I will explain how to build dashboards from our AIOps data lake and how they can help us to analyze, correlate, and proactively detect IT and business issues. The content we will cover during this session is the following. We will start by a high-level overview of this feature. Then we will explain the main difference between data source and panel plugins, which are the key components of the DEX dashboards. And then we will see just a high-level process about how to build a dashboard, followed by a demo on how to build a dashboard from scratch. So let's get started. So as I said before, the key components of the DEX dashboards are the data source plugin and the panel plugins. As the name indicates, a data source plugin is just an element to connect and pull data from multiple data sources. We can use, for example, the Elasticsearch plugin to connect and pull data from our Elasticsearch backend, like for example, to get alarms and logs, or the metric plugin to fetch metrics from our data lake. And then we have the panel plugin, which are basically the visualization components that made up any dashboard. We can move them around, copy paste, and they are like fully flexible entities to build any dashboard. The key highlights of DEX dashboards are the following: visualization of inventory, health, alarms, metrics, and logs. So all the data types we have in our data lake. We are also fully multi-tenant in the sense that each user will only see data that is relevant to them based on their tenancy ownership. And we also support graph annotation, so a user can comment or write a note on a chart. We also allow drill down to go, for example, from an overview or high-level dashboard into a more detailed one, like for example, drilling down from infrastructure overview to infrastructure performance dashboards. So in a nutshell, we provide slicing and dicing of the AIOps data lake. So as you can see, we offer customizable and out-of-the-box dashboards to support data-driven decisions. To elaborate a little bit on the different data sources we offer 4 data sources out of the box. The AIOps metadata, which basically connects to our Elasticsearch backend for logs and alarms data types. Then we have the inventory data source, which connects to our topology data store to fetch inventory and topology information. Then we have the insights data source, which basically will help us to join data from the 2 previous data sources, metadata and inventory. And finally, we can use the metric data source to fetch metric data from our data lake. So these are the 4 means we have to connect to our backends and fetch data to represent in the dashboards. And then the other key components, as I mentioned before, are the panel plugins. We have a full list of out-of-the-box panel plugins that will enable you to choose the best way to represent the data, like graph, gauges, heat maps, etc. We ship a full list of default dashboards from all the different IT domains, like application, infrastructure, network, but we also offer different dashboards more related to service analytics, business overview, or log analytics. We can also combine panels from these different domains in the same dashboard, as you can see in the screenshot. We can build a very complete dashboard for a given service like digital banking, where we show the application layer, the virtual distributed layer, network, mainframe, and logs. This is a huge value to see a full picture and very comprehensive picture of all the elements supporting my business. So at a very high level, we have 3 basic steps to build a dashboard, and I will show this during the demo. First, we need to specify the data source and the query, which is basically which data do we want to show. Then we specify the visualization panel we want to use. And finally, we input our settings like panel title or drill down links. Let's go over the demo to show how to build a dashboard. So this is the landing page of the DX SaaS platform. From here, we can open the DX dashboards and access to the landing page. On this page, we can see all the different out-of-the-box dashboards provided. They are tagged with the DX tag to identify that they are shipped out of the box with the product. From here, we can create new dashboard, new folders to arrange your dashboards, and also to import new ones. In the menu on the left, we have the option to create a new dashboard, folder, or import as well. We can also manage dashboard from this icon. We also have the Explore functionality that I will explain in a moment, and the option to configure or create new data sources. So here we can see the data source list, and when we create on Add New One, we see the 4 default data sources that I have mentioned before. Let's take a look now at the Explore functionality. The Explore functionality is useful to produce ad hoc charts. So from here, we can select a data source from the list, and we will see right away the amount of data being ingested over time. Given that we have selected the AIOps metadata, which is linked to Elastic, we can now go and select one of the Elasticsearch indexes. So we're going to go, for example, with Spectrum alarms. So we select Spectrum alarms. We can see the amount of alarms for the last hour, and we can change the time frame to the last 24 hours. And that will give us an idea of how much data has been ingested in this specific index for the last 24 hours. This is very useful to identify which domains or which products are ingesting data in our data lake. So let's take now a look at how to create a dashboard from scratch. To do that, we're going to go to this plus icon, select a new dashboard, and we're given the option to choose add query or choose visualization. Like, how do we want to start? I'm going to select add query. So as I said before, now we need to choose the data source or what kind of data do we want to display. I'm going to start with the AIOps metadata that will give us the option to pull alarm and logs from Elasticsearch. And I'm going to choose the index all alarms. So that's going to give me an idea of the amount of alarms being ingested over time for the last 6 hours. That is the time frame selected. So the metric we are choosing is count, and I can now group by product, for example. So it's going to split my chart in all the different products that are ingesting data. Keep in mind that we can also put a filter and filter, for example, by product. So if I select a Spectrum, it will filter by data coming only from this specific product. Or I can just choose application performance management and it will do the same kind of filtering. But for now, I'm going to put all elements, all products for now. So this would be the query selection. Let's now move on to the visualization part. And here I can choose what kind of visualization panel I want to use to display my data. So I'm now in a graph, but I can change and show a single stat. As you can see, in this drop-down field, it's giving me all the products that I have grouped by, and it's showing me the average for this specific product. I can also select a gauge. This is very cool because it's going to segregate the data by the group by that I have put in the query phase. or I can just go into a bar gauge, and depending on the visualization that I have chosen, I can go here in the bottom and change settings for this particular visualization. For example, I can make this vertical, I can change the type of visualization, right? And I can also edit the results for this chart. We also have the interesting chart called heat map. In here, we need to change to time series bucket, and it is very interesting because it's going to give us a heat map of all the alarms segregated by product. We can also change how the chart looks like. Like for example, we can choose this schema, and to change the granularity, we need to go to the query and specify the interval or the time bucket that we want to use for the data. Like if we put in 1 hour, it will look like this. Finally, going into the general settings, I can put a title to my chart. Let's call it Alarm Heat Map by Product. And once I'm happy with the result, I can go back, and I have the first panel of my dashboard. Let's say now I want to create a new one. I can just click on this button up here, a panel, or I can just duplicate this one. And once I duplicate, I can go and edit it to change the chart. Let's say I want to select a graph, for example. And I want also to display the legend to the right. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to change the title. There we go. We have two panels now. And let's create a new one that's going to be a table of alarms. I can drag it and put it where I want, and we repeat the process. We select the data source, the query, but this time, because I want to display the raw data, I'm going to choose raw document as metric, and the raw document will only work with a table visualization. So we see all the raw data there. Now we need to put this in order. So I can start adding the fields that I want to put on my table, like timestamp. I can add product, message, severity, and for example, host. And that's going to give me an alarm table. I can now come and resize that table, and that's it. That's our very simple and first dashboard. Let's save it. And we can also specify the folder where we want to save it. Very interesting, I can now come here and copy this panel under the More option, and I can paste it on a new dashboard. So this is actually quite useful when we want to clone or replicate an existing dashboard or an existing panel. Let's now create a more relevant dashboard related to business data. So we're going to repeat the process, but this time, instead of pulling data from alarms, we're going to pull some business KPIs like service, health, or risk. So let's get started. So I'm going to create a panel, and I'm going to start that is going to display the service health. All right. Again, I'm going to pull data from Elasticsearch, and we're going to display metrics related to services. So to do that, I'm going to use the index metrics service. Now I'm going to group by service name. There we go. So we start segregating the data by service or business line. And now I'm going to change the metric. Instead of being count, I'm going to display the average of service health. Perfect. We see a bunch of dots. We will take care of that in a moment. So let's now change the visualization. We're going to choose polystat. Good. So this is like a honeycomb panel that we're going to use to display the health of my services. So we can tweak it. I'm going to say, just give me 5 columns and 3 rows, for example. Limit the display to 20 because I don't want a huge panel here. And I can keep changing parameters to make it look a little bit more professional. And I can also add a threshold to change the color code of each service. So I'm going to say that everything that is 0 is critical. Then I'm going to put a warning for 90 and 99 is going to be okay. So good, I have changed this to the last 24 hours. We have added a threshold and we're good to go now. Excellent, so we have our first panel and this can help us to quickly identify which services have a degraded health. Let's now create a heat map with the health of my services over time. To do that, I'm going to reuse this panel, but instead of a honeycomb, I'm going to choose a heat map chart. Again, I'm going to change this to time series bucket, and I'm going to change the buckets to something more meaningful, like 1 hour. I will also change this to the last 12 hours. And I will also order by service health, and I will say give me the bottom 10. Good, and now I'm going to change the color schema. So there we go, we have different schema depending on how do we want to display the color codes. And let's change this to percentage. All right, looking good. And finally, let's change the title of the panel. And yeah, looking good. Let's continue now. So now I'm going to create a table with service availability and locations. And we're also going to color code each row. So we start by adding a new panel. I'm gonna make it to take the whole screen, and let's start with add query. So this time, because we're going to fetch data from services, and I know that this data live in the topology store, we're going to use a different data source, AIOps inside. This data source requires 3 different queries. One to pull data from the topology store, another one to pull data from Elastic, and then a third one to run a join between the 2 data sources. Let's go through that. So in the topology store, we're going to filter by attribute. We're going to select that I want to filter on all the vertex and related edges. And I want to display those elements with a type equal to service analytic service. I will also change the visualization to a table. And I'm going to run the query, but we will not see anything yet because it is still complaining that I need additional queries. So I'm going to compact this query and add a new one. And this new one is going to be related to Elasticsearch metadata. So the first one will retrieve the service name and service details. This one is going to pull metrics related to my services. There we go. And for the metric, I want the average of risk and health. So I'm going to choose here like the metrics that I am interested in. Okay, and I add a new one. It's going to be also average of service health. And finally, I'm going to group by service name. And finally, according to the error message I'm getting here, I'm missing a third query that is going to be the join type. So to do that, again, we add AIOps inside data source, and it's asking me what kind of join I want to do. I know that the attribute that contains the service name in the inventory data source is name, and I want to join that with service name from Elasticsearch. And I'm going to remove this group by time here because I'm not interested in grouping by time for the time being. So excellent. My data now is coming up in the table. And now we're going to color code some of the rows and change the column names. To do that, we go into the visualization component. And well, before that, we can actually change the name of the columns. To do that, I can use an alias, service risk for this one, and service health for this one, and that's going to be reflected in the column names. Excellent. And I can also remove some of the not necessary fields of the columns like description and type, also product and host name. Looking good. So let's now to color code the rows of the table. To do that, we're gonna come here to the visualization option, and in the column style section, we can apply different rules to my rows. So I can say, for example, for the column called service health, we're going to have some thresholds here, 98. And we're going to color code the row. Excellent. So that's it. Based on the value of service health, we're going to get a different color in the row. So let's put a title to this panel. And we're ready. So this is our final dashboard that is going to help us to pinpoint quickly which business components are being degraded at the moment. We can also have a heat map to display the health over time. And we also have a table that shows all the services and sub-services with the current health, risk, and location if that information is given in the service as metadata. So we have created two simple dashboards that I believe that they are very relevant for the business and for the IT status. I hope you enjoyed watching this session.